Dave, Scott, Rich won't be here, Barbara won't be here, Jim will be here, so. I never hear from him. Usually if it's close, I count them down. But when he's got kids, I usually let them go. Not that it's an excuse, but it's an excuse. Yes. Hello. How are you tonight? How are you? Nice and chilly out there.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's a good time. It's good winter. Good.
I very rarely play golf today.
Really?
Yeah.
Which, here in Evanston?
Winter. Hello, Chair.
How are you? Great.
Want to go this afternoon for the best.
Mr. Freeman?
Much better.
Gene?
Good.
He's the only one that's pointed it out.
I'm on it. You didn't remember what his English name is.
I got that.
That's what I figured. Kelly.
Kelly, yes.
Kelly.
I think it starts with K.
Yes, okay.
Kelly.
Good for him. That's terrific. I'm glad to hear that.
He asked me if I would please have some corrections with his English test. That would take 3 weeks, so you would do best as necessary. I said, yes, now that you mention it, I have some corrections for the text. Actually, about 200. But then he doesn't have to leave within 36, which I'm sorry.
What?
Now that you mentioned it, many corrections.
Terrific. Good. Good for him.
Oh, good.
Don't lose it now.
I'll try not to. Ooh, good to see you. How are you?
How are you?
It's better for the computer than way.
Yeah, one more.
More airplanes.
Stuart, I think.
Never mind, I'll just hang it on the floor. Taking it up to the council will probably take longer than
Yeah.
it's worth.
Yeah. But you knew that when you suggested it.
You want an agenda, sir?
No, I don't need the agenda.
You need a packet?
I'd like to see Marino's memo. I didn't
Call for.
Satisfying condition in present time.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm glad, but I'm sorry that's a low bar.
We can, she can share with us.
I was like a teen. He was riding down the road.
It's not like you get a vote.
Yesterday I got a tea and
I gotta have a sense of humor about it.
and he said something about the move. And I said, are you happy? And he looked.
Oh, I have an actual agenda. This is the packet.
Oh, okay.
I'll get you one.
This is one of those days where you go full speed all day, and then I got home. I put something in the microwave for a minute, and I ate it standing right there, and then got in the car, washed my teeth, and got in the car and drove here.
Here you are.
Here.
Did I see you on a bicycle
I
going south someplace?
dressed like Superwoman.
Probably.
Yeah, that might have been me.
Are you a biker? You must be.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure it was you, and I said, that picture yourself.
What do you do on the weekend? women's group. So Saturday I only rode with one person, both Saturday and Sunday.
How late in the season do you all of it?
Well, my face was already getting numb. There's a point where I can keep my fingers warm. There's a point where I don't ride anymore.
Sorry? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it gets to the point, at least for me, where even if I don't feel the cold directly, you feel that your body goes like sort of tense up because it's so cold outside. And at that point, like just being outside hurts more than cycling. You get all kinds of thing in the back or the shoulders.
No, I didn't so.
How did you get so tense, yeah?
Tense of the weather, it's so cold.
Sure does. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's usually windy.
And you're creating one,
Yeah.
of course.
Mr. Galloway.
What a throng.
Right.
It's just because you're tensing up.
Here we go, Dave. Young lady.
Hello, hold that.
What should I call you?
My contact's the gentleman.
Gotta be a lady.
Yeah.
Folks.
Gentlemen and ladies.
Folks, that's all, folks.
So, folks, it's all right.
And I did that thing.
Well, this would be short meeting.
What you think?
Yeah, I think so.
I could use some hour, maybe an hour or two.
You gotta talk about a lot hurting so much. Just to get it. In Evanston. I'm judging, well, street cleaning on days that I don't have street cleaning. That's no problem. But
I don't see what the real problem is.
We're waiting on city staff. They're still meeting.
they were yelling at each other.
No, the neighbors were yelling at each other. Caps.
Getting yelled at, getting yelled at.
Do I really want to sit in between them?
And since Melissa.
Well, there is many options.
I mean, I could, I think we, my recommendation is the recommendation. There she is. We have to share it back.
Melissa, was that you yelling in there?
No, it was not.
I heard you around the court.
You can, once you take it back, I got the agenda, that's okay.
I have to see where this is going to find a friend of mine.
Oh, my
The
goodness.
National Association of Opposed
He will be here.
Women to Women's Suffrage. This is from 1919.
They're waiting for another staff member and then they will
Why
start.
waste time, energy, and money
Could be
without
long, I
result?
see it coming out.
Why waste what? Say that again? Why waste what?
Time, energy, and money without result. This is the National
on the
Association
assumption.
of Opposed to Women's Suffrage.
On the
Suffrage.
assumption that, of course, women.
I say it was my
Correct, so
Yeah.
it just evens out.
So it says vote no on women's suffrage because 90% of the women either do not want it or do not care.
Good enough
Because
for
it
me.
means competition of women with men instead of cooperation. Because 80% of the women eligible to vote are married and can only double or annul their husband's votes.
Double or a no. I lived in a house
Did I know you?
where, where the wife annulled the husband, or vice versa, constantly.
Constantly, on everything.
We might as well. No, actually, they got along on most things, but when it came to politics, they might as well stay home. But that would have been
Well, that's
our
true.
principles.
Did you hear about the
wife ran over the husband because he didn't vote.
No, that wasn't, that's not the one.
Oh.
The husband was running for office, and it was a very tight race, and his wife had been up really late the night before, so he didn't wake her up in the morning to go vote. He tied. No, he tied. Yeah, he tied with the other guy.
Oh, honey, don't worry, one vote doesn't count. Oh, well, then one would have counted.
Is Ken coming?
Yeah, he'll be here in a second. The other one that upstairs is.
We can start
Do minutes and stuff.
minutes and all that. Let me tell, them.
Let them turn on the recording devices. You want?
If nobody takes community development, here. Oh, yeah, that comes up, I've only had that for half a year. That's fun, they give me a gap here. Yeah, we gotta have some fun, right? Okay, go ahead. That was the wrong way, okay. You
We're not racing.
Well,
When was the last time you wrote with the company?
1960s, 70s?
This is the Evanston Plan Commission. This is the Evanston Plan Commission with the microphone on. Welcome. We have a quorum, I think. And before we do the discussion of the text amendments, we need one more city staff member to come. But in the meantime, is there a motion regarding the minutes from the last meeting? Or are there corrections?
Motion to approve, oh boy, what was the date?
Use your microphone.
Motion to approve the October 10th staff commission, plan commission notes, I'm sorry, not staff.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The next item of business is zoning text amendment 12 PLND 0070, which relates to banquet halls as special uses. Is there a staff report or comments from the staff?
Good evening, Melissa Klotz, zoning planner. This has been before the zoning committee of the Plan Commission, and the idea is that a regulation needs to be created for banquet halls. Currently, there is no regulation in the zoning ordinance specific to that use, and depending on each specific situation, such a use could possibly be considered a restaurant, a conference facility, a cultural facility, a performance entertainment venue, or a retail service establishment. But it ends up where, depending on exactly how the banquet hall is run, it would be classified by one of those uses, all of which have different land use regulations. With the proposed regulation, we would be creating a definition for a banquet facility and are recommending that they be allowed as special uses in all B, C, D, I, and M districts, as well as the O1 and RP district. By allowing them as special uses, that gives the city the process of looking at it on a case-by-case basis and establishing conditions of hours of operation, as well as thinking forward to the size of the establishment and what kind of impact that may have on the neighborhood.
Is there any discussion?
Would you repeat those districts where it would be allowed?
They would be allowed as special uses in all B, C, D, I, and M districts, as well as the O1 and RP district.
Thank you.
Any further discussion from the members of the commission?
I never remember what the business district stands for. So
zoning map, I'm sorry.
I didn't bring my phone.
Do you have a zoning map that Patricia could look at?
I don't have one with me. The idea is that it is excluding the residential districts and the university districts, and for the most part, that's it. Because it's a special use process, that gives us the option of excluding it on a site where it would not be a proper use, but we would rather not exclude major zoning districts because potentially, there could be a vacant warehouse in an industrial district that could end up being perfect. And at the same token, there could be a very small space surrounded by residences with no parking where that would be a terrible location. So with the special use process, we feel that all of the districts listed would be appropriate for consideration on a case-by-case basis.
I assume the definition of banquet hall as a principal use would exclude the special use regulation from the university banquet halls.
Correct. They're not considered a primary use since they are a part of a larger university use. At the same token, a banquet hall in, say, the Orrington Hotel, that would be accessory to the hotel use and would not be regulated this way.
Are there any questions from the commission? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Hearing no questions, is there a motion to recommend the passage of this ordinance to the City Council?
So moved.
It's been moved, I think, by Dave and seconded by. Was there a second?
Yes, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Unanimously recommended. That brings us to zoning text amendment 12 PLND 0069.
Mr. Chairman, don't we need the findings on the text amendment for
You're
the
right.
banquet?
We should have some findings.
I mean, I think the only one that's applicable is probably whether it's compatible with the comprehensive general plan, and I think that the comprehensive general plan talks about diverse economic development and diversity of commercial uses.
It does. Any other
But I don't think there are any other standards that really apply here.
thing? In this form, it doesn't affect environment, historic preservation.
And we wouldn't know until there is a
Specific application, no?
a petition, a specific application as to whether it has an adverse impact on any surrounding businesses or property.
And the adverse impact is also one standard that the zoning board would be looking at in granting a special use, so it would be addressed at that time.
But let's just move to the second zoning text amendment relating to an overlay district on Howard Street.
City staff, in discussion with the zoning committee of the Plan Commission, is recommending establishing an overlay district on Howard Street from the eastern boundaries at the CTA tracks to a western boundary of Ridge, as well as extending slightly up Chicago Avenue so that it would follow the exact boundaries of the Howard Ridge TIF district. The idea behind the overlay district is to address certain retail uses that are prolific on Howard Street. Uses such as hair salons, nail salons, beauty shops, and barber shops have a growing concentration specifically within that area of Howard Street. And what appears to be happening is oftentimes those uses, when they are in large numbers in that area, they tend to not necessarily be the best tenants and not necessarily take the best care of their buildings and not necessarily have the proper hours of operation that we would hope to see in a major corridor. We're proposing that those types of uses would require special use approval so that they can be seen on a case-by-case basis by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and each of those concerns can be addressed so that we can make sure that proper businesses can go into that area of the city and make sure that there is not a negative cumulative effect. Also along those lines, we would be ensuring that the proper the proper idea behind the TIF district is established so that hopefully we can encourage redevelopment, whether it would be with those same businesses or possibly different businesses, to encourage redevelopment, revitalization of the area, and encourage more growth in the area. With the proposed ordinance, we are proposing that there would be a clause for continuation of use that would allow the existing uses stated to be rendered non-conforming for up to a 2-year limitation. After that 2 years, any businesses that do exist in that area would be required to have obtained a special use permit for the city or cease to exist. That would also occur for any site that is currently one of those uses that may cease to exist within that 2-year time frame, but then have another such use jump into that location as a non-conforming use. So at the end of this 2-year time frame, we should have all conforming uses that either have been approved by the special use process or are no longer in operation there.
Melissa, I have a concern about that 2-year conform or you're out of business. I can't actually believe that's something we'd be considering at all in an ordinance. So if a business is a successful business, but there's too many of them, well, first of all, they're going to have to go within 2 years and get a special use permit. And if it's deemed that there are too many hair salons or nail salons on a few blocks of Howard Street, you're going to put these businesses out of business?
In going through the special use process, if a business does show that they have been a successful business and they are a benefit to the area, they should have no problem being approved for the special use.
Yeah, I have such a big I have red flags about this thing all over the place. And, you know, okay, so number one, this is America and there's such thing as capitalism, right? And it's the market. I mean, there are a lot of people, and I'm a lefty, okay? But there should be a lot of, you know, across the spectrum that say, you know, the market should decide what is viable in certain areas. And from my perspective on Howard Street, we can't legislate, or in that TIF district, we can't legislate what kind of businesses are going to open. I think that to me is...
We haven't been talking, just so everybody knows.
I'm sorry?
We haven't been talking, but maybe the ideas could be contagious.
Oh, you mean
I'm shocked.
are you agreeing with me, or you,
I am agreeing
yes?
with you.
Okay, so so I look at this thing and I'm saying, wait a second, have you spoken to the building owners? How do they feel about you potentially saying, hey, there's a whole class of businesses that we aren't going to allow on Howard Street or on the Howard TIF district? And I'm saying Howard Street because that's which I think is what what you're trying to target here. And right off the bat, I look at all these things, and it's just like there's just no way, as a commissioner or as the city, should we be doing something like this. I understand the goals of this ordinance, and I'm not saying I disagree with trying to have more diverse types of businesses, but I don't think you can legislate against a certain type of business like this, and especially something that's in existence. Okay, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Any further comments?
So I wasn't wrong, right? That is what you're saying there. So
That is what we're saying. And to address a few of your concerns, as this is a text and map amendment, notice has been given to all properties within the proposed overlay district, as well as all properties within 500 feet. And it has been noticed in the newspaper. Also relating to your statement that this is a capitalist society, et cetera, that's definitely true. However, we are looking at this area as it is already targeted as a TIF district, which means it is a blighted area that is in need of redevelopment. And while there may be businesses that can make it there, it doesn't mean they are the best businesses for those locations. And that's what this overlay district is getting at.
Dave?
Question.
Vicky's question first.
The provisions on continuation and amortization are new. That is to say, we did not discuss these in the zoning committee, I believe. What would be the
That is correct.
What would be the impact? What would be the implications of adopting the overlay district as it is defined without the provisions for continuation and amortization? What would happen on the ground?
In all likelihood, most of the overlay district would be ineffective because a large part of the problem is that there are these businesses that we're talking about that, they do not do extremely well. They make it for a little while and then they close. And then another business that's extremely similar comes into that location. So as long as they're going into those same locations, they would be allowed as continuing a non-conforming use, and they would not be required to obtain a special use permit.
As long as the use continues, even though under different ownership and operation.
Correct.
Thank you.
They would not have to get a special use.
No, they'd be grandfathered
Yeah.
as uses in that location.
Ken, is it your opinion that a 2-year amortization period would be upheld in Illinois? Or are you not giving that opinion at this time?
I would hesitate to say whether or not it would be upheld. I don't purport to be able to read the minds of judges out there. However, I did look at a number of cases involving amortization periods in zoning ordinances. The periods that I saw in the cases range anywhere from 1 to 5 years, 5 years being on the outside for much more intense uses than retail service establishments. Things like junkyards, large industrial uses, essentially, many of which that would require environmental remediation for redevelopment. The 2-year period, the way that I arrived at that number in particular is that the current special use ordinance that we have in the zoning ordinance states that if a special use is abandoned for a 2-year period, the special use lapses. So using that as the inspiration for the 2-year period is where we came about that number. I am by no means wedded to the idea of a 2-year period. If based on my research and the existing ordinance, it seemed to me to be a reasonable number. But if it's the will of the commission to recommend a different time period, I'm more than willing to hear and to write it as such.
The trade-offs I see are slightly different than Seth's and Patricia's. When you try to make a change in zoning, on the one hand, you would like the change to be effective so that the new built environment is consistent with the change, and on the other hand, you don't want to hurt the existing building and business owners and operators. The courts have allowed amortization. In California, the periods that have been allowed are shorter than in other places. In many places, as a philosophical matter, cities have rejected amortization. In Illinois, the periods have been longer than in California. So I think there's trade-offs to think about between the good that the ordinance might accomplish for the area and the hardship to the business owner. My weighing of that is that 2 years is too short. And I think there's good reason to adopt this type of regulation. But I think both as a policy and legal matter, 2 years is too short. 5 years looks to me like a little more fair. I'm not sure what the courts in Illinois would do with 5 years, but I think it's harsh. And I, too, am a good capitalist, but I think amortization is reasonable, but this period is shocking to the conscience. At least my conscience. Maybe some other consciences are not shocked. Go ahead.
Is there a way of grandfathering the existing owners so that they don't have to go through the special use, but if there is a change in owner, then they have to apply for the special use, the new owners?
On a practical matter, that could prove very difficult. There could be a change in ownership that essentially the city would not be aware of. For the example of within these, the personal services, personal care services as they're defined in the ordinance. Many of them are not licensed by the city because cosmetologists and the like are licensed by the state of Illinois. So if a person operates one of these businesses lawfully within the proposed overlay district and then sells the business to another licensed individual, the city would not necessarily, and they continue to operate under the same name and the same location and the like, the city may well not become aware of the change in ownership. So just as an enforcement level, that could prove impractical.
But what about as a legal matter?
Right. This is an area where Ken and I have disagreed in the past. And sometimes judges will make it very clear. But I think 2 years would be a problem. I think we could require registration almost immediately, and of the owners, and not grandfather in the current status without registration.
In which case, what we've discussed is a potential possibility in lieu of a 2-year amortization.
In lieu of any amortization?
Well, perhaps in lieu of any amortization. It's just the stumbling block seems to be knowledge of when ownership changes and the ability to
consequently the ability to enforce the change. Is that right?
I would just add to that well, Melissa did speak to the point that some of these businesses are somewhat transitory in nature. If the ones that exist now were to somehow stabilize, then they could potentially continue to operate as legal nonconforming uses or grandfathered uses, however you want to term them, ostensibly indefinitely, which would then undermine the purpose of the overlay district itself. So that again, as Commissioner Peters points out, we're trying to balance the hope to change the overlay district and the businesses therein, while without being unreasonable in the amount of time it takes to do so.
Question. But Seth's got a question first.
Seth?
If a new owner, do they have to get a new business license?
Well, again, many of these are not licensed by the city because they're exclusively licensed by the state of Illinois.
Don't need a business license to operate a business in Evanston?
Depends on the kind of business. The state in its professional regulations chapter, it's 225 ILCS, has stated that even home rule communities may not license, and it's something on the order of 50 different kinds of professional categories, and included therein are cosmetologists and barbershops. So the state has precluded the city from licensing them.
Granting them any kind of business license.
Again, they say that we can't. The state has said that the city shall not license those types of businesses. We issue licenses for many, many kinds of businesses. We also have, and the city itself has a number of kinds of business licenses, general business licenses, food establishment licenses, hotels, etc. But again, the state has kept under its own jurisdiction dozens of types of businesses, several of which fall within the additional special uses set forth in the proposed overlay district.
I have a city question. There is no single service for the city bills the business for, like garbage removal or anything that you can catch who has changed ownership? Because I'm loath to use zoning ordinances or to catch all the problems in the planet. So you put a very heavy zoning ordinance to solve just about anything.
Understood. One of the issues is that many of these businesses, the operators do not own the structures in which they operate. They're tenants. So billing for things like trash collection and water bills go to the building owner.
There's not a single service that the operator would be billed for.
It depends on the particular operator and their location. If they own the building, then the city may become aware. If they're a tenant, it's less likely. The city does not issue electric bills.
Do we have a census of what is the case? I mean,
I think if there is a decision not to recommend amortization, then we would be dealing with legal nonconforming uses, and that it's possible to require registration of legal nonconforming uses, and that they can be notified, and that the failure to register and some other protection around it could result in the elimination of the legal nonconforming use. And so you have an incentive to register, and then later if you could do it on a regular basis. I think there's a way to handle the knowledge problem. But if the same uses stay, then the objective of the ordinance, if we have no amortization, the objective can be thwarted.
I'm fine with the objective being thwarted.
Question.
For reasons we have discussed.
If we tried a regulatory approach, a registration approach, can the standards for registration include some measure of economic success or economic viability? I'm a little bit concerned. I can't quote this back, but a comment that Ken just made sounded to me like we were saying we don't care whether these, I may be overstating the case, we don't care whether these uses are successful or unsuccessful. It's the uses themselves that we're addressing here. And the longer we go on this discussion, the more I don't like it.
Well, if you think about cumulative impact, which is really what this is about.
But if you're thinking about cumulative impact, Scott, then you have to find some way of combing out the ones whose impact you like and the ones whose impact you don't like. And my question is, can we write that into a registration scheme so that we get to keep the good ones?
Well, it would not be in the registration scheme, but in the special use scheme,
Or those
cumulative impact
interpreting it.
is considered. But I think what we're dealing with in this set of uses doesn't have to do with whether they're economically successful or not. It also, I think, if the period is longer, the problem will take care of itself. I don't think these are 10-year uses. I think they're shorter, that there's likely to be turnover. Like not turnover in ownership, but turnover in uses. And we have a number of different kinds of uses that are included. So the ordinance should be, if we don't do amortization, written so that it's the existing use, not the class of uses. But I'm comfortable with 5 to 10 years, because I think at that point there will be fewer. There will be applications for special use at that point. If it looks like there isn't any adverse cumulative impact, they should get the special uses.
I would just state that if it were to be something as long as 10 years, the TIF at this point is nearly 9 years old. If you had 10 years, the TIF will be then 19 years old and only have 4 years left of life. So that could, again, if we're trying to bolster the TIF, an amortization period that long may not be effective.
You know, as was previously mentioned, this is a TIF, and by definition, it is, whether you agree with it or not, it's a blighted, by definition, a blighted area. Given that fact, I think the city is entitled to take some extraordinary measures to correct that situation.
Mr. Steele, the issue is that if a special use isn't given, if the way this is written, if a special use isn't granted, or within 2 years they have to apply for and presumably receive a special use, or they're not permitted to continue in business. And so the discussion before you came started with Seth arguing he doesn't like amortization and that kind of requirement, wants to grandfather them. And then there...
I didn't say grandfather them.
Well...
But I don't like amortization.
But the effect is so everyone has expressed an opinion except you. And you don't have to express an opinion, but soon we have to discuss it further or vote. Let me do a...
If he's not ready, I haven't spoken yet. I'm sensitive to the argument that this situation is a special situation. After having listened to Alderman Rainey and driven through the neighborhood, I think I understand the special nature of what we're trying to do. And so as a consequence, I'm sensitive to the argument that we should be more, should pursue on a more forceful scale whatever we believe has the potential to change the neighborhood and take the best advantage of the TIF district. I'm wondering if staff has run the amortization by Alderman Rainey and what her comments were. But based upon the knowledge that has been conveyed to me by her, it seems to me that given the flighty and transient nature of these kinds of businesses in this area, that exercising the goals and the actions that we've talked about here would improve the economic viability of any owner of any of those buildings, as opposed to be a detriment to him. However, I would not want to propose that we pursue a tack such as amortization if it's going to be kicked back further down the road. So in regards to that, I would be very well influenced by those of you that have more legal experience in zoning matters. But at any rate, I'm curious as to what Alderman Rainey's opinions or comments have been in regards to the 2-year amortization, if you know of any of those.
I do not.
Let me ask the board members. 2 people, I think, are not comfortable with amortization.
If I had a vote, I would not be comfortable with a 2-year amortization.
I'm certainly not comfortable with 2.
Who would be comfortable with 5?
I'd have to have a question answered first.
What's that?
Well, my question is, do we have, either in Evanston or anywhere else, precedent for the amortization of a use in a TIF as a way of addressing sort of working blight?
I'm not aware of a specific example. That does not mean that it doesn't exist, obviously, because there are many, many, many zoning ordinances out there with which I'm unfamiliar. The amortization, though, by its nature, is designed to spur redevelopment and to eliminate uses that in a particular area that, for some reason, based upon the wisdom of the enacting corporate authorities, are inhibiting redevelopment in that area where it is needed. Again, as many of you have said, the TIF district was established because the council determined that this area of the city is economically blighted. In order to try and combat that, one of the tools we would use is economic development, which can be motivated at least in part by zoning, hence this ordinance.
Granted that the TIF as a whole had to be identified as blighted in order to create the TIF, is this the first specific use that we have determined to be blighted within that blighted area?
In order to try to answer that, I would have to know the nature of text amendments and map amendments in this area and that relate to the districts applied to this area going back for the past 9 years, and I do not have those off the top of my head. But Dennis Marino may have something to say on the matter.
Good evening. Sorry to be late. I was at another meeting. But in response to Mr. Ford's question, clearly through the state designations process for the TIF, a good portion of the area was declared blighted. There are a number of standards that need to be met under state statute. And there also were some vacant parcels that were involved in that, and obviously a number of buildings were physically obsolescent. There were a number of other characteristics. So the whole basis of declaring as TIF is a blight designation.
Well, I wasn't questioning, Dennis, the blightedness of. I wasn't questioning the decision to create the TIF, the argument that it was blighted, all of that. But it seems to me now we're stepping up and saying, well, these uses are really blighted.
Have any other uses been made illegal and amortization period set? That I think is Mr. Ford's question.
Right. I don't think, can't think of any offhand, other than there are other uses that have been put into a special use process. Certainly the religious institutions, storefront church-related concerns of about a year ago. There was legislation.
We didn't have an amortization on those.
I don't think
We did not have an amortization, but just wanted to make clear that that was a change in status for those uses. I can't think of offhand, another use, but we'll take a look at that.
One of the interesting aspects of this is if the TIF is successful and the area becomes more valuable, the rents will go up.
That's right.
And these uses are there because the rents are so low.
Yep.
So
But it's also a chicken and egg.
I was going to say it's a chicken and egg piece. If these uses prevent the success, the rents will stay low.
Well,
So it's...
Yeah, well, it seems to me is that because the TIF is not working as fast as maybe the city would like it to work, they want to maybe kickstart it with some zoning on specific uses in this new overlay district, and I think that's very unwise. We have a TIF district which is supposed to is designed to kickstart an area, and it's not moving as desired. But to put this amortization in, I think it punishes people that are there today. It punishes, in the short term, the building owners that lease the spaces. I don't think that in 2 years from now that we kick out a bunch of hair salons and nail salons, all of a sudden all these other businesses are going to want to come in and rent because they're not doing it today. And I don't think by making a bunch of businesses, putting them out of business is going to encourage other businesses to come in and take their place, because those same businesses at the same rents today could come in, and they're not. I'm completely against this amortization.
While people are thinking about amortization, and before we go to the public, are there any other parts of the ordinance that commissioners want to talk about or ask questions about?
Yes. The addition of the category, I love this, divinatory arts. I think that's new since the zoning committee met.
No, I think there was.
Was there something?
We discussed it.
Did it have that name applied to it?
I don't know if it had the
No,
name, but we
didn't have the
discussed
name.
no, but we included financial analysts in
We didn't
CBAs.
use that phrase, I don't think.
That phrase was not previously used. Those specific uses were discussed somewhat at the previous zoning committee meeting, and one way of grouping them is by calling them the divinatory arts.
It's a nice name for them. It's a very romantic name, arts. So what page is this?
Oh, shoot, my battery fell out again. Damn it, I hate this.
Damn those batteries.
Oh,
It's got a bad latch and it just... I'll find it.
oh, it's part of this. Wait, I've messed up the order of this. Oh, joy. The pages are not numbered. That's why. Call to order. Okay, I messed it completely. I never know where it goes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
a question.
go ahead.
You said that notice had been sent to the owners or the operators? To the business operator or the building owner?
Property owners?
I assume you mean taxpayer of record?
Correct.
So the the business owners may not even know?
They may not if the property owner didn't share the information.
So
It-
it would be more than likely they don't know.
It has been noticed in the newspaper for both the zoning committee meeting and the plan commission meeting as well.
In an understandable way?
Well,
English, is that good enough?
You know,
another term of art.
In what newspaper?
In the Evanston Review.
Who reads the Evanston Review? I never read the Evanston Review. So, I mean, it's a small area. Why weren't there not flyers, sent to them?
This is a text amendment, so,
text amendment that can put them out of business.
Exactly.
but it is a text amendment. And so for text amendments, there is not necessarily notice sent to each business owner. In fact, even for map amendments, it's sent to the taxpayer record. It's really hard to know who the owners are, other than through the tax rolls, and even who the operators are.
Actually, on the agenda, there are two joint ordinances, a text and a map amendment. The mailed notice and the published notice were due to the fact that there is a map amendment for consideration.
You're right.
Just wanted to make sure that that wasn't overlooked.
So it's an overlay district.
This was also featured in Evanston Now today, so it did reach the public to an extent.
Today.
Yes.
Is there
I was all over the patch today.
any questions
Yeah, I do.
about other pieces or this piece? Go ahead.
I guess one of my anxieties, I do have several anxieties about this one, but the first one is this. Since we know that this may not actually have any impact on the actual landlord, but may have an impact on the operator of a particular business, then would it not have been fair for us to make sure that those people whose life may actually be altered by our actions today receive some sort of notification so that they could also be here to voice their opinion?
All I can say is that the notices were issued both by mail and in the newspaper as required by the zoning ordinance.
I do understand that, and I think I've heard it come out in many different ways, but my question is this. This is also a small town, and if this actually goes through, there is a strong possibility that some people will be out of business in a year, in 2 years, or maybe 5 if people are comfortable with 5. Is it not fair that for somebody who has been there while that particular strip has been blighted is given a fair chance to basically make their case also? I think it's fair, and I don't think it's going overboard we know where the businesses are.
I think one thing we need to keep in mind is that we're not looking at prohibiting any businesses. They would all have the option of applying for the special use, and I'm sure in whatever time frame we would be looking at establishing, the city could work to have more notice to encourage those property or those business owners to apply for their special use permit.
Can I just ask one question regarding that? Who's going to help these business owners with the process of applying for special use? Are they going to have to get lawyers, or is this something they can do for themselves? And if so, who's going to help them through the process of doing it? I just see this as a very lopsided thing.
People always have the option of obtaining a zoning attorney, but many times, most often even, a business owner goes through the special use process on their own, and it is specifically the job of myself, the zoning planner, to work with the applicant through every stage of the process and ensure they understand the process and everything that needs to be done.
Okay, so they can get some help to basically reapply, but assuming that, okay, let's go back here. What is the city's vision for that particular strip? What sort of enterprises are you trying to currently attract to that strip?
A variety of uses that do not become overburdened with one type of use that would have a negative cumulative effect.
Okay, and then as we speak, there are such enterprises fighting to get into that particular Howard corridor.
That's been my point all along.
We wouldn't currently know that because of the existing businesses that are there.
Okay, so the city's position is that the current businesses that are there are deterring other enterprise from coming over there.
If I could comment, I think you have to look at the goals and objectives of the tax increment financing district to see the city's vision related to Howard Street, but you also can look at 415 Howard Street, which was developed several years ago. Not that the city is looking to develop other structures of that height and density, but the concept of a mixed-use development pattern going west on Howard Street has been long part of the city's vision, but that would include ground floor space for office or retail as well as residential above. And there was a great deal of interest in that in 2007 with the economy going south, particularly the real estate market. We were fortunate to get 415 Howard up with a great deal of TIF assistance. But there is opportunity, I think, as the economy improves for other development to occur, as well as other small businesses. I mean, now you see the development of the City Lit Theater complex underway, under construction at this point on Howard Street, as well as the wine bar that's been established there as well.
Okay. Dennis, 415 Howard, is that a mid-rise next to the train station?
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
Well, if you look at that particular building, the footprint, I mean, you have the space to put that sort of mid-rise over there, but if you cross Chicago Avenue, you don't have that much depth in there. So it's going to be almost impossible to do that sort of development over there. So again, Dennis, I guess my question is that from Chicago Avenue going west, you have a Marathon station, you have auto parts, you have bodegas right at the corner of Coster. You have some hair salons. I think there are a couple of doctor's offices over there. What specific business on that corridor are actually deterring people who want to do other things from coming in? I asked this question, Dennis, because it seems to me, and I think it may appear to other people, that this is an effort to basically come through the back to chase people who may be deemed as unwanted or unwarranted out of there. And I'm trying to make sure that that is not where we are going.
Right. Certainly, that's not the intention. The TIF was established to basically redevelop property where that was feasible with TIF assistance along the Howard Street corridor, to deal with the many vacant spaces and heavily underutilized spaces that are in some of those buildings and those storefronts, and that continues to be an issue. I mean, it's certainly in terms of locational decision-making, not only investors but also retail businesses and restaurants. If they see an agglomeration of uses that they don't think are compatible with their particular enterprises, then sometimes they don't go to those locations. So that is partly related to this issue.
I may ask one last question, then I'll stop after. Well, Dennis, you've been in this economic development stuff for a long time. So, I mean, your opinion I trust, but I do have another question. Actually, one question, two parts. The first thing is this. Today, how many people I guess it would be difficult. How many people in this city actually make the journey to Howard Street to shop or to get involved, to patronize the enterprises over there? If we as a city are struggling to get people to go to somewhere like Asbury and I forgot the name, to Oakton, to go and shop at the store over there, because of the perception that that place may be dangerous or not, what makes us think that people in Evanston will be willing to go to Howard to patronize business?
I think the issue is often about destination uses that people desire to go to. I think the city's strategy of having the City Lit Theater on Howard Street and also the wine bar and other uses that may be attracted by their existence will draw more people to Howard Street. If you look at the density of the residential community just to the north of Howard Street in Evanston and just to the south in Rogers Park and to the east, including 415 Howard, it's pretty significant. And it's also a matter of, again, getting uses that will draw more of those people from those neighborhoods to that location. And the other issue you have to consider is the great transit access you have to rapid transit at the Howard Street station, and the number of transfers that pass through Howard Street and take buses west or might walk west if there are more uses that they found of interest to them. And it's really an untapped market that's been there that way for a long time.
Thank you.
We've heard from the commissioners, and I'm sure we'll hear more. Is there anyone of the general public that wants to speak to this or proposed ordinance?
I have a question. My name is Steve Schwartz. I'm just curious, how many of these hair salons are there that have blighted the neighborhood currently?
Currently, in the area that we're talking about, there are 11 of these establishments.
And
It's approximately 20% of the businesses there.
And what happens if those same businesses were Salon Lamia and Art and Science and a couple other successful that are downtown Evanston? If they were down on Howard, would we be happy with what the outcome was for that street? So it's not necessarily the type of business, it's just that business is not a great operator. And I think the city has a responsibility. If you want to create a TIF and you want to improve an area, then improve the area. Put a bike lane in, make it viable, clean up all the storefronts, fix the sidewalk, put planters on it, and make it an attractive. And you don't have to worry about it. I'm a restaurateur in town, and I will take a space on Howard Street. And I don't think dictating who's going to be there, they're going to disappear because there's going to be other people wanting to come there. Eliminating them is going to leave empty storefronts. You got a great paint store. You have the woman who does Appleseed, who is outstanding. You ask the guy on the south side of Howard to clean up the storefront with the grocery store. It's amazing. He did a great job, and that's that's appropriate action to take. The storefront was terrible, and he cleaned it up, and it looks great. And I don't think there's any reason I don't understand why we're picking who's going to be there. I mean, there's a zillion rug guys on Chicago Avenue. I would be much happier if all those rug guys were restaurant guys. Are we going to dictate that we're not going to have carpet guys on Chicago Avenue? Eventually they'll disappear and they'll say our space is better used as a restaurant, and they'll rent it to a restaurant. And I think the same is true on Howard Street. I live down there. I do walk back and forth. I ride my bike downtown. I take the train, and there's nothing wrong with the street. Clean it up, put some planters in, make so there's nice light. Make the guys, people who have storefronts that have had nothing in them, make them clean it up. Clean the windows. Have a window washer come through. Go through and cite them for stuff, and have the places spotless and clean, and it will be a desirable area. And we've already invested. We did $130,000 for a bar to, open up, and we're doing a theater. And if those two things don't draw enough action to the street, getting rid of 20 or 11 hair salons is not going to be the answer to correcting the area. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioners, how do you want to proceed? Are there other parts of the ordinance that need discussion? Is there a motion to recommend approval of the portions of the ordinance which do not address amortization?
I think we should send it back and let it be rewritten without the amortization and let it come back to us. I find this offensive.
I don't think there's anything to be gained. If you think it's okay without amortization, then approve it without amortization. They're going to go back and say, gee, everybody was satisfied with everything except amortization. We don't know what to rewrite.
I don't know. I don't know what this ordinance really does. I mean, you're going to have, if you can't, if you don't know when a business changes hands, so they'll be technically non-conforming, but you won't know if they're non-conforming. Is that correct?
Well,
So that's what you're telling us, right?
you know when they go away. And I would when we get to the amortization, I would recommend that when we do our recommendation, that there be a process to know who the operators are, so that know what the businesses are, so that when the businesses cease to exist, it triggers the requirement for a special use when a new one comes.
So if 10 years from now, all the hair salons and nail salons are gone, and one wants to open up on Howard, they have to apply for special use.
Mm-hmm. And it does. I don't see it as all of them. I see it as one by one. I don't think change of ownership should trigger special use. I think time could trigger it, but I don't care whether it's John Jones or Jack Smith. From a land use perspective, it doesn't matter who the owner is. But I think after a certain amount of time, that the investment in the business has been repaid. That's sort of the theory of amortization, which I think makes sense. The businesses can move. They take their goodwill with them. And 2 years is unconscionable to me.
Chairman?
5 years, bottom edge.
The level of discomfort along this table, it seems to me, is too high to move this forward. And I thought Seth was going to move that we send it back to staff, but he didn't, so I will.
What?
Mr. Chairman, I don't, yeah.
Is there a second?
I second.
What would you have staff do?
If I knew the answer to that question, I would put it in the form of a motion and offer it, Mr. Chairman. What I'm saying is it is fairly clear that there is nothing approaching a consensus here around this table. I would go so far as to say that you are the only one of us who sounds comfortable with the solution.
I'm not proposing. What I was looking for related to the non-amortization portions of this draft ordinance.
We might then amend, I would be willing to add to my motion the idea that the staff look at non-amortization solutions to achieve the same purpose.
You know,
that will give staff something more specific to
and
do.
in here they have the special uses, and I don't know if I'm even okay with that for hair and nail salons. Maybe with the, what are you guys calling this now?
Divinatory
arts. I love it. Maybe with that. But I mean, even then, you know, again, as the neighborhood changes, an astrologer is not going to be able to afford the rent. And the market forces take care of these things. And I just find I can't go along with this.
Is there any further discussion
because
of the motion?
Steve's point, if it was Red Door on Howard, would you really want to put them through a special use?
If there were 10 of them, yes.
But the chances are quite slim that they will be put through.
I think if there were 10.
So how many?
So let's assume
Two?
that there were 10 over there, and they were thriving.
that's
all of a sudden.
That's what the special use process is for, Seth.
Okay, well, I mean, to simplify that, Commissioner Ford, I think, made a recommendation. I seconded it, right? Okay. So this needs to be thought through some more. I mean, a lot of people are not comfortable with this. I know I'm not.
So do I.
I'm comfortable with Mr. Ford's motion because I feel, even though I'm more comfortable with the amortization than anyone else sitting up here, nevertheless, I would like to see further investigation of alternative means of achieving this end that does not involve something as contentious as amortization. And is that not what your motion dealt with?
That's where I'm going, yeah.
Okay, then I would be in favor of that.
So I think we have an idea what's to be accomplished by Mr. Ford's motion, which is to look for an alternative solution. I hear 2 members of the commission and 1 member of the public suggesting the justification for singling out these uses in this fashion isn't clear. Am I correct about that?
I think the justification is clear. We know why they want to do it. We know why it's being proposed. We don't agree with it.
I think 2 is
That's a
one.
fair-
2 is one
Is
too
that fair?
few.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Sorry?
that's fair.
2 is one too few.
Okay.
I'm leaning that way.
What about you?
I really need.
I'm
All right, so
just,
that's 4 of us.
I'm just trying to get some direction for staff so it becomes clear what they might do other than bring it back without amortization.
I have to.
Any further comments that should be made before we vote on the motion so that staff has an idea what people want?
Well, Chairman Peters, I think it makes sense to really take to heart the comments made by Mr. Schwartz, because some of the ideas that he introduced, I think, are ideas that will have a positive impact on that particular place, and I think they should be taken seriously.
So try those first.
Stuart?
I'm not sure where this fits in, but I am reminded of the fact that in connection with bed and breakfasts,
Oh, God.
special use attaches to the individual and not the use, as I recall. That's how the ordinance was at least proposed.
For the bed and breakfast ordinance, which was not adopted.
Which was not adopted,
The amendments thereto did say that the special use permit attached to the operator. The general assumption, it's not even an assumption, it's built into the special use definitions in that section of the zoning ordinance states that unless otherwise specified by the authorizing ordinance, the particular ordinance that grants a special use permit, it attaches to the property.
As I said, I'm not sure exactly if this fits into the mix at all, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
I should just say that given the language that states that especially you shall go with the land unless the authorizing ordinance says otherwise, the council has the opportunity to make that distinction when considering any particular special use application. And if they were to grant one, to make a decision as to whether or not to go with the underlying assumption or to exercise their option to restrict it.
If there are no other questions or comments, let's vote. All those in favor with Mr. Ford's motion?
Aye.
I vote aye also. It's unanimous. Does the staff have any questions of the commissioners with respect to the reason that the commission wants to send it back?
What the hell are you doing?
Just to confirm, if I can, what I heard discomfort with was the amortization schedule by a number of members. And what I think I heard in terms of this direction to staff was come back with an alternative to amortization. I'm not saying that there was complete support by any means for a special use approach for these uses, but I thought I heard a number of members having greater comfort with that than with the amortization schedule.
I think there was more than that. There was serious question about why these particular uses at this location are singled out for special treatment. and maybe there's another way to accomplish the desired objective. I heard that from several commissioners.
Excuse me, Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Any thing that came back that would put a business out of business, I would have the same objection. So I just want to make that very clear. It's the city basically saying to an existing business that within X amount of time you'll be out of business is a big issue. So anything that we would do would have to be enable businesses to go out of business on their own and cease to exist by natural causes, not those induced by a zoning or other ordinances.
And I understand that specifically from the amortization critique.
Sure.
So that's clear to me, that critique. But in terms of a special use, principally would be addressing new businesses desiring to move into the area in that category, move into the overlay district, not existing businesses. But again, I sense that, yes, Chairman Peters, people were also searching for alternatives, but I thought I heard a little more potential support for the special use approach focused on, if you will, inbound businesses.
From some commissioners.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it as more support as maybe less objections.
That brings us to the Plan Commission dates. Everyone should have a copy. Are there any comments about the dates for 2013?
The Jewish holidays are not on my iCalendar for some reason, and I tried to import them and they wouldn't come in. So I'm assuming you looked for that.
You have a good question, and yes, I have. I do believe the fourth day of Hanukkah is on December 11th. That I wanted to address to you. But all the other major holidays of both Christian and Jewish religions are avoided in this calendar.
Great. I think I'll be okay with the fourth night. If not, you guys can carry on without me.
We'll dance the hora.
We'll dance the hora.
That brings us to elections.
I'm sorry, Chair. I need a motion and a pass of these minutes. Meeting dates.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed 213 dates?
Motion to approve the 2013 meeting dates for the Plan Commission of the City of Evanston.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. You have a calendar. That brings us to the elections. And what we need are chairman, vice chairman, liaison to economic development, which Seth has been doing and would like to continue doing. Liaison for street names committee as needed, which Seth is doing and would like to continue doing.
I just started that. I've only had like 3 meetings.
Liaison for Community Development Act and liaison for parking and transportation, which is Dave has been doing. Do you want to continue? Mm-hmm. He likes parking.
I can't trade you place names for parking?
So let's start with chair.
Would it be in order to move to retain the entire slate in one motion?
You could do that.
I'm going to do it.
I think, though, we do have to replace Stewart. You are you expire. You're an associate, but you currently are on
community development. Yes, and I know that Kwesi expressed some interest in taking that liaison spot, but they still meet on Tuesdays. And that was a problem for you before. I'm more than willing to step aside.
I think you have to because you're not a voting member. Is that correct or no?
We discussed that last year because he was an associate member at the time,
okay.
And I believe that the determination was since it's not acting on actual Plan Commission okay. Activities, and he's just a representative of the Plan Commission.
I have a vote on the zoning committee and zoning committee in which I serve, but that's all.
Well, then
And I have a vote on the community development board.
Then we can do a clean slate. I had thought somebody had said that you had to step down, but I was wrong. I misspoke. I'm sorry. So,
But the question is, I'm coming to the end of my term as an associate member. I would be pleased. I enjoy my role as an associate member. I would be pleased to stay on as an associate for another year, but that's the decision of the chairman, I believe, according to the rules.
That's true. So let's do, I think it would be okay to do everything except community development in one motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. I will ask that you stay on. Is there a motion that you can, to have Stuart continue to represent the Plan Commission in front of Community Development?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That brings us down to new business. I propose
The most we would do.
ask for a resolution to commend Craig
Absolutely.
for his work as the staff member for this commission.
Absolutely.
And to thank him and to record the commission's beliefs that we have had really good job by staff since he's been here.
Absolutely.
I agree entirely. It'll be a real loss to certainly to the Plan Commission without Craig.
So is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion or dissent?
I'd like to discuss, because you know me. Craig, you've done a great job, and you really helped us out in so many areas. And I will miss you. I will miss having arguments with you. I miss having multiple disagreements with you. But most of all, I'll miss having you as a teacher, because you taught me a lot. And I would assume you taught a lot of people. And so I'm going to give you a little applause, man. Because, yeah.
Indeed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Is there any other new business? Craig, do you have new business?
Just a reminder, the Comprehensive Plan Committee of the Plan Commission will meet Wednesday, November 28th. It's the Wednesday after Thanksgiving at 7:30 a.m. We may be changing rooms due to presentation needs.
Any other new business?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Is there a motion to
I'm sorry,
adjourn, or-
one more announcement. I do need to remind you, I have 4 of the 9 commissioners with their certificates to me. Please finish your open meetings training. Our lawyers are down to the wire on this one, so please do that.
I miss you.
My last day is November 30th, so please get it in before then. That way I can make sure the next
will
person
send it to
has that in a folder.
I missed the easiest question on all of it. And now I forgot which one, but one question on the whole thing I missed, and it was the easiest.
What is your name?
It's your name. Yeah, there you go.
I put that on a test because I wanted students to have more points, and 1 out of 62 got it wrong. We
Motion
are
to adjourn?
adjourned.
There's no motion to end.
That was. He got the points anyway.
Oh, was he larger? Yeah? What did you do before you started?